Hello and welcome to Insight, everyone. I'm Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Thank you for joining us.
This week we'll tackle the great skills versus degree debate with the Executive Secretary, National Board for Technical Education, Professor Idris Bugaje, speaking on how the skills economy is redefining employability. Then we get practical with Dr. Valentino Evans, business management consultant, who will break down the crucial factors that determine why small businesses fail or succeed in our complex market.
We'll also be exploring disruptive technologies and examine how youths within the African continent and Nigerian youths are leveraging these innovative tools to drive self-reliance, development of the continent. And our guest, Luxolo Rubush, Group Managing Director, Adapt IT Education, would be our guest.
Whatever the issues are,
the National Assembly is constitutionally empowered to scrutinize,
however complex or intricate.
We have involved all the academia, the members of the academia. We have involved the academies.
Be it government policies or in fact any issue of public concern.
Our job is to help you gain clarity and make sense of it all.
This is not really healthy for our democracy.
There's a lot of agreements in terms of who has been in power longest and who becomes the governor of the state.
It's also in the quality of food being consumed.
After all, perception is insight.
And gaining understanding is also getting.
Skills and services are the new currency in developed countries. And I'm talking about countries that have successfully implemented a shift from traditional economic models to one where human capital and specialized service offerings are the primary drivers of economic value and societal advancement. Such societies like the ones I'm talking about now, which are essentially knowledge-based, they regard skills as the foundational assets for progress. Say what you want to say about, countries like China and India, but know this, these countries, they understand the dynamics of practical skills, and they are doing so well, of course, on account of how they encourage or they have encouraged and adapted and utilized practical skills. Nigeria, of course, understands these imperatives and, why it must key in or miss the bus. And that is why we're going to have this conversation. And my guest is right here. He's ready. He is also in the center of this whole skills economy debate in Nigeria. He is the Executive Secretary, National Board for Technical Education, Professor Idris Bugaji. Welcome to Insight, Prof. Good to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, Prof, I remember back in the days, I would go to the home of a relative, when I was much younger. I was in my teens, those days. And then I would see where they hung a frame of university degrees on the wall, perhaps in their living rooms. Then it used to be, they would proudly display it there, on their walls. It used to be a thing of pride. Then they would say that the university degree is the ultimate ticket, the ultimate ticket to, or rather, ultimate ticket to getting automatic employment or guaranteed ticket to a white-collar job. Definitely used to boost, their social respect. But now, we are in an era where we have a staggering number of graduates with university qualifications and degrees, but that degrees that the economy no longer values in the same way it used to in the past. Prof, do clarify something for us. What exactly does it mean when experts like yourself say skills and services are the new currency of the world, and why it is that majority of Nigerian youths will need to key in, otherwise they may not just be able to make a living in today's complex society? Why is that so?
Well, surely today the global currency of labor is skills. There is a paradigm shift. There is a shift away from preponderance of degrees to what people can deliver with their hands. That's
so too much book does not take you anywhere.
It doesn't take you anywhere. We have done it for a very long time. It has taken us nowhere. So the whole economy is now geared towards skills development, and that's why Nigeria must key in. Many countries are using skills not only to give employment to young people, but they are using skills even to earn foreign exchange. Bangladesh exports nothing less than 11.5 million skilled workers to the world. They earn over $30 billion annually.
These are facts.
Yes, these are facts. You can clarify them. And India, exports over 50 million, young people across the world, including Nigeria. And so the whole world is changing towards, the education systems are being reviewed from the paper qualification of the past to skills. And the earlier Nigeria, moves away from that old method to this new paradigm, the better. We have to refocus our system so that we can deliver on skills. Somebody finishes secondary school without any skills. That's why he roams about. Somebody finishes a university or polytechnic with the diploma or with the degree, but without hands-on skills, he will go nowhere. But if he has skills, he doesn't even need to look for employment. He can create employment himself. He can create an enterprise. He can employ other people. So this is the new trend globally. And our system must therefore be rejigged and refocused so that we can deliver on skills throughout our educational system. This is the only way we can make education functional. We have gotten it in the policy, functional education, but in the past several decades, our educational system has never been functional. It's only when you imbibe skills training that your educational system can become functional.
You've just talked about the situation we have with our curriculum, or too much theory, or how theoretized our education system is. But besides that issue of the curriculum, in terms, how much so in terms of impact are we seeing currently with the current drive for vocational, technical, and digital skills programs in Nigeria, even including some of the initiatives that the federal government is driving, like the 3 million technical talents. That's the one they call the 3 MTs. I know these are also issues that MBT is involved in. How much so are we seeing in terms of impact? Are we seeing a drive or a shift towards technical, vocational, and digital skills in Nigeria?
Yes, in the last 2 years, there has been a major shift. I think the new federal government is refocusing on TVET and skills training. Not only the Federal Ministry of Education's new TVET initiative, but the Ministry of Labor, the Ministry of Communications, the other ministries, Housing, Federal Ministry of Housing, etc., are rolling out, skills training programs, for Nigerian youth. We have a very vibrant youth population in this country.
Indeed.
75% of Nigerians are below the age of 35. No country has this kind of, statistics of high, numbers of young people. And a lot of them really are unemployed. You can count them in tens of millions that are unemployed. Many of them have degrees and diplomas, but unfortunately they don't have the requisite skills. So that's why the new initiative, the new TVET initiative, and the 3 MTTs, etc., they are meant to take up this crop of graduates, give them skills training for about 6 months or 1 year, then prepare them for industry. Because we have industries in Nigeria that are looking for skilled labor. Go to the oil and gas industry, the underwater welding. We are bringing Filipinos, we are bringing Indonesians to do underwater welding, while the young people can be trained, Nigerians can be trained. Go to construction science in Abuja, a lot of the finishing, POP, tiling, etc., is being done by people from Benin and Togo. I mean, these are jobs that can be carried out by young Nigerians once they are properly trained. So there are, in the area of ICT, there's a huge gap there. And if Nigeria can really empower young people with ICT skills, we can fill millions of gaps that are available globally. India, South Africa, Kenya are leveraging on that. 50% of call center operations are being run in India. Global numbers, are being run in India. Nigeria is the largest country in Africa. We should be able to take a large chunk of that. But we are not, empowering the youth with the relevant skills. So this is what these programs are meant to do. The new TVET initiative of the Federal Ministry of Education has already been launched. Yes. 1.3 million Nigerians have already registered. 960 have been properly accredited. And I think about last week, the Honourable Minister has, rolled it out, small numbers, 58,000 to start with. But more are coming on the way, because we don't want to start in a big way and we get problems. So we are starting in a smaller way, but the numbers will grow into millions. So this is the way to empower young people with skills so that we can meet local demands and we can also export labor to the world, and we can earn foreign exchange.
So I was totally right when I said in my introductory part that your strategic position, as MBTE, is right in the center of this whole skills, economy debate. But now you've alluded or made allusions to several things that have been done. I'd like for you to speak more specifically. How does all of this specifically impact MBTE's core strategy in terms of interventions in closing this skills gap? Let's say I want to know what single most significant tangible intervention your board is currently driving to ensure that every graduate, whether from a polytechnic, whether from a monotechnic or a college, technical college, leaves not just with a certificate, but with a market-ready, hands-on skills, that employers would find attractive and willingly, readily embrace. What would you say to that?
Well, MBTE has been on this for the past several years. 2 years ago, we launched what we call the MSQ policy, Mandatory Skills Qualification Policy, whereby every diploma holder or HND holder will not graduate until he brings a Nigerian Skills Qualification Certificate of one skill that he has passion for.
Okay.
He may be doing public administration. If he has passion for tiling, we'll accept it. He will go and get training in tiling. He will get certified with an NSQ, Nigerian Skills Qualification Certificate. Okay. And with that, it is like it's finally a project. Without that skills qualification, he will not graduate, as an ND or HND holder. This is a policy we have introduced. From last year, many polytechnics have already started rolling it out, but we understand there are limitations in terms of spaces, in terms of facilities for the skills training. So we have allowed, polytechnics to introduce it at schools and college level gradually. But in the next 4 years or so, we expect every graduate.
Do you not intend to enter into some collaboration with the private sector, not just government, to try to close that gap as well?
Surely we can't do skills training without the private sector, because the assessment of the skills is not done in the workshop. It's not done in the polytechnic laboratory. You have to take them to a live site where that kind of skill is being, facilitated.
True.
Either a live construction site, or you take them to an automobile mechanic village, or you take them to an industry where production is going on. That's why you allow them to operate machines, and then you come and do assessment of their competencies. And that way you can now give them certification. So collaboration with industry is very critical. We can't do skills training without MOU with the neighboring industries. The challenge we have is we have few industries, especially in about 30 states. 6 states in the country are industrialized: Lagos, Ogun, Rivers, and a few others. But if you come to the other states, the industries are very weak. So for that reason, we have encouraged the informal industry. If you go to Kaduna, we have Panteka, the informal industry. Abuja, you have the Apple Mechanic Village. If you go to Aba, you have Araria Market. In Ikeja, even though Lagos is industrialized, you have in Ikeja the computer village. These are informal industries that we have now recognized, and now we are involving them in the skills training so that young people, after the practicals in their workshops in the polytechnics, can go there to add more, to their hands-on capabilities. So we are already rolling out this policy, and we are appealing to colleges of education and universities to adopt this policy. This is our answer to the German dual system. Everybody is praising Germany for its dual system of education, whereby they imbibe both theory and practice right from primary schools. China is also doing it in a very superb way. So this is our answer, whereby students will now graduate with dual certificates, national diploma and a skills qualification certificate.
I mean, I can't stress enough how germane this is to our progress as a nation, because of course, look at all of the examples that you've mentioned. And Prof, let me also take you up on something equally germane, and that's, the imperatives for continuous learning. Knowing that even in terms of what we're talking about, you and I know that the value of skills in itself depreciates over time.
Yeah, sure.
So that, even as job markets, and they evolve or they depreciate as job market demands evolve over time. So how proactive and responsive must we be, both at individual level and as a society, as well in terms of investing
Yeah.
in long life or lifelong learning
Yeah.
and upskilling,
Yeah.
so that we don't get dumped or regress into the dustbin of history as jobs evolve or skills evolve. We are stuck in the past.
Yeah, the skills ecosystem is very dynamic. It's never static. Skills are changing sometimes by the day. If you go to ICT, every week, every month, new skills are being evolved. New applications are being developed. If you go to welding, if you go to fabrication and other construction skills, almost every year you find new skills being evolved. So we are up to the task. We are always trying to upgrade and update our curricula. We are trying to also develop, upgrade the occupational standards, which are the items we use in, skills training. So we are up to the task. We are doing our best to improve on those. And we are also calling on government to invest more, because some of the machineries that you find in workshops are very archaic. Lathe machines that were used in the past century, are no longer relevant in this century.
True.
You use CNC machines so that you can do precision fabrication. You can do cutting and lathe and whatever with precision. So we need to invest more into TVET. Governments must, bring in more investment. Private sector also must come in to support training institutions. Because when we train these students, they will end up in industries. So industries need to partner with us so that institutions in their environment can be properly equipped with modern facilities, modern equipment, so that we can deliver state-of-the-art training. With this, we can even have qualifications that will be recognized globally. But when we continue to use 20th century equipment, we cannot deliver on global standards.
True.
So I'm appealing to government, I'm appealing to private sector to join hands with TVET institutions so that we can upgrade equipment and facilities to deliver up-to-date training for young Nigerians.
Prof, since we're on the subject of training, but not to digress entirely from the key issue,
Yes.
I wonder where we are as regards the perceived inequality between the HND and bachelor's degrees. I know, Prof, you're chuckling. I know some work is being done.
Yes.
There are ongoing efforts to redress the situation.
Yes.
And address the dichotomy.
Yeah.
But how is the MBT ensuring that these new proposed qualifications, like the higher national diploma top-up, they are not just another or seen as another academic lever, but they are fundamentally embedded and entrenched with advanced industry-driven skills that makes the holder, whoever has that qualification, more attractive to employers than even the traditional degree holder.
Yeah. Well, you see, the problem of the HND BSc dichotomy, if we start with that one, is a sign of underdevelopment, unfortunately. And it has been with us for almost 3-4 decades. It has refused to go.
Yes.
A lot of efforts have been made, in order to address that. Legislation has been made, but never signed. You wonder what happens. They may go to, the legislature will go to the villa. But at the end of the day, even in the last regime, up to the end of the last regime, there was a piece of legislation.
They got to the National Assembly.
But it will end up nowhere. So if I had taught in South Africa 20 years ago, or over 20 years ago, and their industries even demand HND more than the degree holders. That's what they prefer in their employment. But here we have a lot of discrimination against HND holders. The solution to this problem, what we have decided in Nigeria, we have decided to follow the example in Ghana. In Ghana, they have scrapped out the HND completely. After your national diploma, you come back to the same polytechnic and do a Bachelor of Technology honors degree. But a Bachelor of Honors degree different from other degrees because it will be awarded based on 3 things: character, learning, and skills. University degrees are awarded based on character and learning only. The polytechnic degree shall be awarded based on character, learning, and skills. Hands-on skills. So we shall be offering Bachelor of Technology honors, which will now replace the HND. After your national diploma, that ends your training as a technician. If you want to move to higher level, you can now go and do your Bachelor of Technology honors. The content will be similar to HND. We shall even add more, hands-on training into the curricula. But we want the certification to become Bachelor of Technology honors. Already, the Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives has sponsored a bill to amend the Polytechnic Act. It has gone to second reading, and we hope before the end of this year that bill will be concluded, and we are praying that Mr. President, who has a lot of passion for TVET, will now sign that law, that bill into law, so that Nigerian polytechnics will be offering a dual mandate, both national diploma and Bachelor of Technology honors. Colleges of education have already gotten, the dual mandate. They are doing NCE and Bachelor of Education. Polytechnics should be allowed to run their national diploma and Bachelor of Technology honors. A degree that will be based on skills, not the conventional, theoretical degrees offered by the ivory towers.
And that would be perfect.
Yes.
I mean, that would just be wonderful. If it does get the president's assent this time. I recall, I think I was mistaken earlier when I said the bill actually, that it got to the National Assembly. It went beyond the National Assembly because it was actually passed and was pushed to the president, but never got the president's assent at the time.
Yeah.
Prof, so in rounding, in wrapping up, rounding off our conversation, you've said so much about the MBT, you've said so much about, closing the gaps. I wonder again if your KPIs are matching up with some of the success metrics that you've mentioned here today, and that you might also have set for yourself or targets, ahead for the MBT. And I mean, in terms of these crucial skills over degrees pivot that you as MBT are leading. Well, is it matching up?
Yeah, it is. It is. We are really moving on a fast track, and we are happy with the new government, the Tinubu administration, with its focus on TVET and skills. When I came in as Executive Secretary about 4.5 years ago, we had only 1,420 quality assurance assessors. But as I speak now, we have about 7,000 quality assurance assessors in Nigeria. We have not yet gotten the numbers, because Ethiopia has about 37,000 quality assurance assessors. So look at our numbers, 1,420 4.5 years ago. Now we're about over 7,000 quality assurance assessors. These are very key drivers of the skills training program, because when you do the skills training, you have to be assessed. And assessment also, we have gone beyond the traditional assessment. We're even giving what we call recognition of prior learning. Those who are in the informal sector are now being assessed and properly certified. All your roadside mechanics, all your roadside welders, fabricators, etc., will now be properly assessed under the RPL program, recognition of prior learning, and they'll be given proper certificate. In the next 5 years, we are hoping that we'll collaborate with professional bodies so that only those with a recognized certificate would be allowed license to operate. The Nigerian space has allowed everybody, quacks, the professional and the quacks, to operate. You bring your car to a mechanic, you don't even know his level of qualification. So with this RPL, we hope the informal sector will be properly certified, and professional bodies will now start issuing practicing licenses, even for the roadside practice.
Executive Secretary, National Board for Technical Education, Professor Idris Bugaje, thank you so much for coming on our program. It's been a delight listening to you talk about these key germane issues. We want to appreciate you so much for your insight.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
My next conversation is on business failure, which, of course, is not new at all in Nigeria. But what is more striking is that startups and small businesses face this problem more than, the big ones, big businesses, as it were. And so we're engaging a business management consultant for the purpose of gaining some insight into how small and medium-scale businesses can succeed and, not become victims of failed businesses. My guest is Dr. Valentino Evans, a management consultant, executive coach, and leadership expert. He's also the managing director and chief executive officer of Black Belt Global Consulting. And he's here to help us, clear up some gray areas as regards these issues. Welcome to Inside, Dr. Evans.
Thank you for having me.
There are definitely, and I came across lots of them in my research for this conversation, reasons why MSMEs, generally fail, but particularly in Nigeria. I hear that at least 50% of these small businesses, that they collapse in the first year of establishment, and nearly 80% of them fail within 5 years into their operations. I find, this, and of course, one other reason quite intriguing and germane, and that is that businesses, or some businesses, do not even know their market, do not even understand their value or the value of the services and products that they have to offer before they even establish an open shop. I would think that is the core foundation of any business. I mean, upon establishment, or even before establishment, I beg your pardon. So I understand a bit about what business development service providers do. But I wonder if, beyond creating business plans whether for prospective or existing businesses, how business support systems, generally and truly equip entrepreneurs to get a good sense or better understand the nuanced needs of the Nigerian consumer, and also subsequently help them effectively couch their messaging for them to be able to communicate whatever unique value that they have for the market.
Well, it's remarkable it's alarming actually if you look at the number of businesses that do fail right from the startup, from 1 year of inception into 5 years. It's really alarming. And most of them do not take cognizance of the fact that there are certain things which must be your non-negotiables, or things that must be foundational to starting businesses that you must pay attention to. A lot of them do not even know it. And before you even start a business, like you said, you need to pay attention to what their minimum viable product is. That is their MVP. It's very important that you get to know that.
Does that also translate to their unique selling point?
Yes, it might initially translate to their unique selling point, because put your best foot forward is what is being said. So if you actually from the onset know your whys, you're coming into business, that will ultimately dovetail into the fact that you will be solving a problem. Business in itself is solving a problem. You are meeting a certain need in your community, in your locality, in your nation at large. You are meeting a need, and in meeting that need, you must have researched and found out an answer to a certain question. So that's what business is. It's not going to be circumstantial, or because you are hungry, that's why you just started a business. No. It must be that you have encountered a problem, and you know you are well equipped to actually solve that problem. That's what brings you into business. And then in going into business, you begin to know or develop a product to present to your community, to present to your world. And when that product is properly refined, properly given the right attention, and then the quality of that product gets to a stage whereby it can be presented to your world, then you can say that's a minimum viable product. Okay. Now, that's an initial. It might be the entry point into the market. Might be that entry point into the market is what will allow the market to receive you, allow the people to know what you do. Now, it might broaden up later in the future, but when you balance that, you will find out that focusing on that and putting all you have into that will definitely and ultimately make you a strong force and grind you into your locality. So you will be able to move that business to where it's meant to be. So you would definitely scale some hurdles that will, mitigate or cause your fall.
And again, I come back to you on the same question that I asked, because knowing all you've said is idyllic. I mean, in an ideal situation. You and I know there are people who get into businesses without knowing some of these facts, and that is why they fail in the first year of establishment, and more so, even when, people come in to help and all of that, and then they still fail within the first 5 years of their establishment or operations, as it were. And so I raised the issue of the BDSP, and that's the business developers, development service providers, and how such services or, providers could also come in to help such, whether they are prospective or existing businesses, understand the nuanced value that they offer. How does that all fit into this conversation? I mean, what essentially does the BDSP does, especially when you find yourself in such a situation where you do not even understand in the first place the value you have for the market?
Okay, now, thank you very much for that beautiful question. Now, the thing is this. It's extremely important that we take cognizance of the fact that when a man is sick, he needs a doctor. Whether you are not even sick, you need to get your test done to know how your health is. Now, the person that can help you understand or know the health of your business is your business development service providers. In code, we call them BDSPs. Okay. Now, the work of the BDSP is to help you look at your business holistically. These are business doctors. They've been trained and equipped with the ability to be able to help navigate your business, help you navigate with your business. When you're going into business, you need an arm of your business, which is you call a HR specialist, to help you handle the human resource department. Now, the job of the BDSP involves or entails also helping you with your HR department. Now, it's a holistic thing entirely. We found out that many businesses that even get funding into their businesses right from the onset, whether it's a startup fund or whether you are doing your Series A or Series B, you are doing all that, money is coming in, but many of them fail because there are some certain critical factors and some certain key performance indexes that they actually cannot understand. And these indexes or these nuances they can come into play when you have or employ the services of a BDSP.
Is it true that it is quite dangerous for a business to mix personal funds with, or use business funds to meet personal needs? I would think that the whole essence for me running a business is so that I can address my personal needs. Why then is it, why then is it difficult to pull out money, or it's not ideal for me to pull out money from my business, maybe not my capital, but maybe it's my profit, at least from my business account, and use that to address some personal needs? Is that poor financial management or mismanagement, as is where in your world, in the business world?
Well, this is a very broad topic, but I'll answer it in a way that can easily fit for what we're doing right now. So the first thing is, before you go into business, there are capacity building trainings that you must engage in, and one of them is financial management, proper financial management. 40% of businesses right now in Nigeria have come up, or part of the surveys that was done, we found out that 40% of businesses have the problem of financial literacy, which is proper cash flow. Now, you might think you know about money, but until you begin to learn how cash flow is meant to be recorded and follow through in business, there will be problem. You must be able to identify where money is leaking in your business and where money needs to be pumped into your business. It's not about what you like. It's about the service you are providing for your community. Now, the thing is, when you are a founder, when you are a creator, you come up with the idea for a business. It comes into your mind. You know that there is money to be infused into that business. And so therefore, the first sets of monies you are making in that business, you ought to understand that a large chunk of it should go back into the business to actually give it the strength that it needs to have. And if you started a business, this is Nigeria. You started a business because you're a little broke and you just want to make money and spend it. You need to understand that proper financial management should inform you that you should begin to pay yourself a certain salary. Now, that salary might not be so robust at the beginning, but a portion of your funds should go back into the business so that that business keeps going. If you take all the funds out and use it on pleasures, or even if needs arises and you use your business funds, how is that business going to grow? It's going to die right from its inception. And so that's part of the problem why, like you said, most businesses, 50% of startups die in the first 1 year. It's part of the major problem. Is not because they do not have money, it's because they did not manage what came in properly.
So I shouldn't start thinking of next week Sunday now, because maybe I've worked Monday to Saturday, and I think, I just made one small profit from one sales or one service that I just made or gave, and maybe I should take out time on Sunday to largesse, and spend from that money. That is not wise as a businessman. It depends on how I manage it, right?
And how much money is coming in. But you must definitely, minimum 20 to 40% of what came in must go back, must go back into the business.
True. Let me, while we're still on this whole issue of funding, let me ask a question as regards inadequate financing. Obviously, that is another key aspect of funding, and it's another critical component of whether a business fails or succeeds. How is the business advisory ecosystem, effectively structured to help build the trust and transparency required to connect viable small businesses with today's somewhat suspicious, maybe wealthy, but yet reluctant financiers. Say for instance, I want to expand my small fish farm by small scale aquaculture into maybe processing and exportation, and I clearly need funds to do that. How appropriate, I beg your pardon, would it be to explore maybe a network of angel investors or crowdfunding platforms to grow my business? Does the structure of my business determine the finance options open to me?
Now, that's a very vital question. When it comes to financing or funding businesses, especially in this part of the world, Nigeria here, we must understand that there is a critical thing there. There are things you must meet. There are criteria that you have to meet before an angel investor or a bank or whatever institution is ready to, options you have on the table. There are criteria that they look at. For example, you want to secure a loan from Bank of Industry. Bank of Industry has criteria that you must meet. And most of these criteria you cannot meet on your own. That's why you need a BDSP to help you go through these things and make sure you are well positioned and help you with all the documentation and everything you need. Now, the thing is this. Many of us do not have proper financial documentations. Now, that's one of the major things. You might have registered with all the CAC and everything, institution you need to register with, everything on point. But before an investor looks at you the second time, they want to see your books properly done. They want to make sure that you are not one that when this funding comes, the first thing is you go and marry another wife, or you go and buy a brand new car and begin to show everybody we just got our Series A funding and we're good. So that's where the challenge is. The trust between the investor and the entrepreneur, it has to be properly built. And so in Nigeria, when we begin to focus on the proper things, the key performance indexes, and we are, we tailor make our business to fit into these things, we will not have these challenges or these problems. Now, one thing I'm going to say again is, when you go to get loans from probably BOA, BOI, or any financial institution, banks and all that, you want to get funding from them. They might ask you for a collateral. You want to get a 10 million naira fund, they're asking you to bring 20% down payment, and you do not have it. Now, I like what the federal government has done. The National Credit Guarantee Corporation is taking is taking away 40%, basically. No, that's 60%. They've been able to take away 60%. Government has pumped in funding into that for you to be able to access 50% of that. So it remains 40%. And if your books now are not right, in which we found out that many people, even 40%, they still cannot meet up. Why? Because their books are not right. So an angel investor wants to come to you. Every business from inception, whether you are a startup or you are already in business, you must make sure that your books are right, everything, your documentation is right, even to your address, your personality, then your knowledge of the business. Your knowledge of the business is very key. If I see that you are making money from your business and all that, and your knowledge of that business is not standard, chances are that down the line, you will lose that business to someone who has more knowledge, who has gone for more capacity building, who has developed themselves, and is taking advantage of what we call probably the tech or the micro shifts of the market or the cultural nuances that we have right now. Anybody who's paying attention to that might outrun you in your business. Perhaps they might even start after you because they saw you start it. But if they pay attention to these things, they will run you out of business, and an investor will always pay attention to these things.
Talking about, running out of business or maybe expanding, I would like to ask you two questions, quick questions. I'll need two quick responses because we're totally out of time. My director just informed me we were short our time. First, Doc, is it true that rapid growth itself can be fatal for a small business? In what context is that even possible? And then two, this whole copy syndrome, for businesses that we have in Nigeria. My neighbor opens a sachet water business. He appears to be making it. I quickly go open a sachet business, a sachet water business as well, without understanding the dynamics of the market and, who or where my market is and all of that. And then there is no originality, there is no innovation. How does all of this impact on small businesses, as it were, in Nigeria?
Well, starting from the last question, you've already answered it by yourself. You said there is no originality in it. No, see, the person that initially opened it, perhaps maybe he worked with an organization that has done that for a bit, or for a few years. And now he understands the dynamics. He knows the terrain very well. And he has gone into that. He's beginning to, he just moves into that business and he's good with it. But you saw that it's making money. You don't even understand how he started or what made him start or how he even got his first funding to start. And then you just take money and you jump into it. And there's going to be a serious problem. There are differences between the both of you. Now, when it comes to the copycat kind of thing, we do copy a lot.
Yes.
Nigeria is known for that. But you have to have your own unique selling point. That's why it's called a unique selling point, something that's peculiar to you that nobody else has. It has to be unique to you, and you must present that to the world, and that's what the world is going to see.
Very quickly, the issue of rapid growth and how that
it's a problem. I was coming into that. Rapid growth is dangerous. Organic growth is good. It helps you master and know and understand the business terrain itself, see how it's growing. Rapid growth might be good for those who have been in that field for a bit, that shifted or diversified or into their own sector. Maybe you left someone's business to start your own. You might already understand how to handle it. But rapid growth is dangerous for someone who is just coming into that. You can pump. That is why too much money into that business is dangerous. You might be trying to meet a need that you don't have capacity to handle. And so organic growth is very, very good, as much as it's good to grow rapidly and to go widely, but make sure that you have all the critical stakes to handle that particular kind of thing, because when the storm comes, you might not be able to handle it.
Dr. Valentino Evans, CEO Black Belts Global Consulting, Executive Coach and Consultant, as well as Transformation Leadership Advisor. Thank you so much for coming on Insight. It's been quite germane. We appreciate your insight on this matter. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Elizabeth Omori is up next. She will be taking us back to the issue of education, but now she would be looking at the application or utilization of ICT for transformation education. Elizabeth comes up next.
Transformative technologies, also referred to as disruptive technologies, are innovations that significantly alter industries, markets, or societal norms. They often displace established practices or products, thereby introducing new ways of doing things. Leveraging the power of these technologies to revolutionize education for national growth is a focus on this segment. And my guest, Luktolu Hubush, Group Managing Director, Education Division, Adapt IT, will share insights with us. Mr. Hubush, thank you so much for joining us on Insights.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope I got your name correctly. Could you pronounce your name?
It's pronounced Luktolu Hubush, but you tried very well, and I give you credit for that. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Now, let's begin with smart digital teaching and learning technology solutions. How are we Africans leveraging these solutions? Because most nations within the continent are still grappling with severe political issues. So adopting these technologies look too far for us. And why is it so?
Thank you so much. I think you make a very important combination. One, it is the role of government and the extent to which that role assists education broadly, higher education for us in particular. We have seen and we know that on the African continent, interestingly, where most of the money does go, it goes to, amongst others, education. And that will typically refer to basic education. And we have seen a focus on that also trickling into higher education. And the key consideration, firstly, is how to widen the net to bring as many of these young people into the education space. The second challenge that governments do have is ensuring that those that enter education remain in education and they are able to graduate. The other element of that, coming to answer your question, is that those that graduate, they then begin to have a challenge of finding employment that can sustain themselves. So that's the first broad challenge that I think the state has. Linked with that also, it is the cost of education, particularly higher education. So questions of efficiency then begin to come to effect and begin to really have a weight in terms of the decisions on the allocation of resources for the state. And when we now begin to speak about disruptive technologies, what we have seen, particularly with the advent of COVID in 2019, there was a serious focus to say, how does the world, broadly speaking, and Africa in particular, respond to what was a clear shift in providing education? Traditionally, it has been face-to-face or in-person, and during COVID, it moved full swing, 180, to then go into online. Institutions now have settled into what is called hybrid modes of learning. That has brought challenges, but it has also brought a number of opportunities into the sector. And I must say that Africa, in fact, has got very deep penetration of digital teaching and learning technologies.
Okay, let me come in then.
Yes.
And now, with digital transformation accelerating changes across Africa, how is technology fostering innovative learning approaches, particularly emerging markets like, let's say, for example, West Africa?
Yes.
Like you mentioned, tertiary students in tertiary institutions are still having these issues because by the time they leave school, accessing these technologies is a problem.
Yes. If one looks at the key epochs within an institution of higher learning, the first one is about how do you enable access, and I'm now underlying that with education, with technology. Okay. So the first key aspect is how do you provide access for students. The second one is how, once they're in the institution of higher learning, they are able to learn and learn effectively with the use of technologies. And disruptive technologies then have assisted us with the following. The first is that you have got portals, and now these are also available via mobile devices, where students themselves can apply online. They can also register online without having to set foot on campus. Another component of that, which is a big frustration for many in higher education, has been the question of how do they get accommodation for those institutions that provide accommodation. How do they manage funding from third-party donors? So you now have got technologies that are able to assist with regards to the applications and the registrations process. If you look, for example, on private higher education institutions, one of the key considerations for them is how do they identify students that are able to pay, because those payments obviously are quite key. And we've got technologies that are able to facilitate that, that integration with payments directly to the banking sector, for example. The other one, just by way of interest, has been how do you verify that if you are registering students here, for example, in West Africa, in Nigeria in particular, that they are a citizen of Nigeria, and that for that matter, they are entitled to some of the financial assistance that the state does provide. So linking that to your own database from a Home Affairs point of view, or your Department of Interior, begins to be important. For those that may be said to be indigent, you then want to link to your SARS database, with your revenue database, so that you can verify that they indeed are students that are in need, and they don't have parents maybe that would be able to afford to pay for them, just by way of examples, yes.
Okay. Now, you know, in Nigeria, we have the Student Loan Fund,
yes,
where students access fund for their education. Now, from your own perspective, what are the most important skills educational institutions can adopt to maximize the advantages of ongoing edu-tech revolution?
Thank you so much. This is actually one of the key benefits. Africa invests quite heavily in education. In South Africa, for example, we have what we call the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, and we're a key aggregator of their information. One of the key dependencies there is how do you ensure quite early enough. In fact, many of them, I would say, Namibia has got NSFAF, Tanzania has got Higher Education Student Loans Board. And one of the critical elements in there is funding students that are in need. And how do you verify that the students that you are funding indeed are in need of funding? Because obviously there are limited resources. And that is where then the verification and the integration with other state-owned sources of information allows us to be able to confirm that the student that is applying for funding, indeed they are in need. The other one that is quite key is that there is a dependency for this student loan board on the work that is being done by the institutions themselves. And what do I mean? One, we must verify that the student that we are funding qualifies to enter the academic program.
That's true.
And for that, there must be feedback that goes back to the student loans board. The other element is you find students applying in multiple institutions, and therefore they may be funded for those institutions or for multiple sources, thus then reducing what would be the available pool of funding. The other element that is important there is when students, They will start with one course and then they will change during the course of the year.
Yes.
But the fees that are paid for those courses may be different. For example, a student may come in to do a Bachelor of Commerce and change maybe from that to do engineering, and the courses are different. So you find that they may have been funded for one quantum initially, but now the needs of the institution have changed, and therefore they need to have a different set of funding. The flow of that information between the institution as well as the Student Loans Board is one of the critical success factors in the administration of the funds. Last but not least is the ability of those students to pay back. And how does the Loans Board here in Nigeria track those students that were funded, ensure that they are working, and ensure that what they are earning in salaries is sufficient for them to be able to refund the Loans Board, and then obviously create a space where other students can get that funding. There is firstly a delay in the time between when a student does graduate and when a student is able to find employment.
Okay.
And when they do find employment, then the question begins to be whether or not in that employment they are earning enough to be able to pay the student the loan. And what also then happens in reality is that a lot of these young people, by the time they get employment, so between graduation, let's say employment, the student sits for a year, maybe 2 years, they actually owe not only the Student Loans Board, but they've got debt owing to a number of other areas. For example, they would have needed to survive in terms of having a place to stay. Many of them, they have to leave their original homes and go into cities to try and find work. All of that adds up on their own cost. And by the time they find employment, they must still take care of the most basic needs before they can pay back to the Student Loans Board. So that's the very first challenge. Then the second one that they have to contend with is that now they must start to pay back. But how does the Loans Board track and keep track of those that are earning enough so that they can pay them? But also you don't want to snuff out the ability of the student to survive because now they have to pay what would be an onerous amount of money back to the Loans Board. And many of us, I'm happy to say, we have what some call black tax, but essentially because we live in a communal arrangement, we would have been assisted by a sibling or two to go through to an institution of higher learning. And once we graduate, there's an expectation that we are going to assist other members of the family.
Of course.
So the payment back on the Student Loans Board is balanced against other needs and obligations that a student does have. But from a government point of view, the ability to track those students and determine what the threshold is for them to be able to pay back.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
In what ways would you be helping our tertiary institutions and their TVETs develop robust and sustainable digital learning infrastructure?
Yes. The first thing that we've done just on that, we have said we have got a collaboration model.
Okay.
And that collaboration model first looks at what IP may have been developed by a certain institution that we're able to scale. Number two, we've looked at how do we co-create solutions with institutions. Then when it comes to digital teaching and learning in particular, that digital teaching and learning is critical for purposes of how do we get a student to be appropriately accommodated and registered. I'll give you a sense in terms of what our system does have. Most of the automation that is required in institutions of higher learning, it rests on what we call the academic structure. And that academic structure essentially is a replication of the prospectus that an institution has. And linked with that, it is, for example, the rules for promotion. It is the weighting that is required. And we're able to automate that such that a student can move from 1 year on to the next year.
Okay.
Also to help in terms of identifying those that are eligible to graduate. And obviously, and you'll see that there's a big impact in terms of certain vocations because you can actually use now artificial intelligence to mark a paper. A task that used to take days or even
Weeks,
hours can be done in a matter of minutes because there is an application of artificial intelligence. Another big element has been the extent to which learning itself is aided by these technologies. And here I'm just talking about artificial intelligence. Another one maybe I may cite with the time that we have is what is now called agentic AI. And what it does do in particular is that you don't have to be a computer science graduate to be able to develop programs or code. Perhaps one that is also worth mentioning in the space that we are in is how to authenticate documents. And there's technology now where you can see the QR codes in terms of giving access to venues, verifying documents, that are also quite key in the process of applying these FIR technologies. The other challenge that we have seen is that a lot of young people study and graduate with a piece of paper, but with no core skill and concrete skill. And to that extent, I would encourage very much entrepreneurial approaches, partnerships with corporates that are here, so that in those internships, young people can begin to learn how to create proper solutions that in themselves they can use. And we've seen some very interesting businesses, even within institutions of higher learning by younger people, who have been able to blend those two schools of thought. Thanks.
Luktolo Hubush, Group Managing Director, Education Division, Adapt IT. I want to thank you so much for joining us on Insight, and thank you for enlightening us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I truly appreciate it, and I've had a wonderful time here in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
And that's it on this episode of Insight. Do join us same time next week for more on the program. My name is Nnamdi Adigbo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.